Good afternoon, everybody. It is your buddy Ardent Party again, and today for Newfoundland Political Studies, we're going to have a look at some of the anti-Confederation propaganda that was going around before the referendums. There's not going to be a lot to this video. Let me just throw my beautiful face up. Hi, how you doing? Let me see if I can't get myself in focus. And I should probably take the pen off my shoulder. I'll just poke you back up there. And, yeah, so not a lot to do today. This one's going to be a bit of a fun, sort of semi-informative one. Just to look at some of the visual images that were being used to promote the anti-Confederation side. And the first one I'm going to start with is actually one that I had to alter slightly for my own obsessive-compulsive nature. It's this one by a Mr. Coleman, which I've altered to look like this in order to make it a little clearer. Unfortunately, it's a little too small still. Let me just a moment here. There we are. And let me just upscale this just a touch more. We'll go with the quintal measurement and a quick crop. There we are. Okay, so as you can see, you have the average outport man saying, "Hey, you can't do that. My home is my castle." As the sheriff, representing Confederation, comes by and puts a sign up that says, "Sheriff's sale, this property to be sold for unpaid taxes." And the fellow says, in a Canadian accent, using the word buddy, "It might have been once, buddy, but you're in Confederation now." And we won't talk about the spelling of the word "your," of course. One of the chief fears people had when Confederation was being talked about, one of the major points against was the amount of taxes that Canadians were paying versus what Newfoundlanders were paying at that time. And given that the average outport fisherman was, in a sense, a debt slave to the merchant class, it's somewhat understandable why they would be concerned about that. I believe the next image... no, just a moment. Let me see. I think... Here we are. This one here. Let me just move that over so that I don't confuse myself. The next image is another one concerning taxes. No matter what they say, and of course they'll say things like, "Oh no, you won't pay more tax," and things like that. And this was one of the things that people were being told, along with the dole being one of the chief selling points of Confederation. They were being told that the tax burden would not be increased particularly. And of course that's not true. There were sales taxes, income taxes, luxury taxes, all sorts of taxes. And not listed here, of course, is estate tax, capital gains tax, sorts like that, which have been brought in since. Just moving along here. And of course, what Confederation will mean to Newfoundland is Ottawa shaking the poor Newfoundlander so that Quebec benefits. This one kind of speaks to it for itself. And just to zoom in on that date, I do believe that was April 11th, 1948. So this would have been during the height of the discussion. And of course, the attitude of a Newfoundland cartoonist to Canada is very clear here. They believe that they were the spider to Newfoundland's fly. And we will come back to this one. But this one here, "Do you want this to happen?" And of course the Canadian fella says, "When I get you in my clutches, what a shaking you will get." It's Canada, Quebec, and Ottawa against Labrador and Newfoundland. And already at this point, people were predicting that if Newfoundland joined Canada, a lot of the industry and a lot of the benefits that we had seen during the Second World War with the American bases would be closing or had already closed. And here we see Harmon Field, Fort Pepperell, and I'm having a hard time reading this one, but I do believe that says Fort Pre-Andrew, though I may have that incorrect. Fort McAndrew, which was also an Air Force base. Or, sorry, a naval base. I'm not even sure where that one was located, to be honest. I've never heard of it. Fort Pepperell and Herman Field, I have heard of both. Herman Field, for those of you who aren't aware, is actually one of the places that Amelia Earhart stopped on her round-the-world flight. And moving along, of course, we have the somewhat famous picture of Ches Crosby sporting a toothbrush mustache. And, of course, he was saying, "Don't sell your country. Join the 90,000 Newfoundlanders who refuse to sell out and vote responsible for economic union with the United States." This probably would have hurt the anti-Confederates' chances, given that making the statement that we want to be independent so that we can give up our independence to another country, a little bit of a questionable choice. That said, excuse me. That said, the feeling at the time amongst the outports and amongst the great majority of the public, as I understand it, was that Confederation was the last choice. And it really became a choice between responsible government or a return to commission government. And most people in the Confederate camp were focused much more on avoiding either of those options, as it would lead to a potential union with the U.S. in some fashion. And, of course, even the anti-Confederates were pointing out that they wanted an economic union, not an actual political union. They were not pushing for Newfoundland to become, at the time, I believe, the 50th state. Possibly the 49th. I'm not 100% sure. I know we would have gotten in before Hawaii, but I'm not certain about, I think it was Alaska right before Hawaii. I'm not 100% sure of the dates there. And of course, this one that I'll come back to, I'm actually back to, I believe. Yes. Okay. And I do apologize to Mr. Coleman, the original artist of that cartoon, but for the sake of my OCD tendencies, I did want to correct it so that it was more easily read left to right. So all I really did was flip the entire image and then flip the text back. But one of the signs, I suppose, rather than an actual poster with an image, read, "No Confederation, reduced, not increased taxation. Let us keep our fisheries for ourselves. Let us keep our lands, mines, and minerals for ourselves. Let us keep our revenue for ourselves. Newfoundland for the Newfoundlanders. No rewards for traitors. No militia laws for our young men. No drafting for our sailors. Let us stick to our old mother country, Great Britain, the true land of the brave and home of the free. Let us never change the Union Jack for the Canadian beaver. Never give to Canada the right of taxing us." Now, that one in particular, that last one, is actually not pro-independence or pro-responsible government. That's actually one of the pro-commission government, one of those who wish to return to Dominion status initially, and then from there, what would be the people's will would be done, of course. Unfortunately, none of these happened. None of those particular outcomes occurred, and we were left, well, with what we were left with. We ended up in Confederation. For my money, not necessarily the best choice. And it is what it is at this point. At some point in the future, I will take a close look at the terms of union, and I will be looking at some of the other literature and documents from that era, or dealing with that era. One of the books I do intend to look into quite closely is Greg Malone's book, Don't Tell the Newfoundlanders, which I read some time ago, but spoke about a few different things that, at the time, one would consider conspiracy theory-ish. With some of the recent events, I think we've all come to the conclusion that the only difference between a conspiracy theory and a fact is about 3 months. In any case, that's it for me today. I do realize this has been a rather short one, but sometimes they don't have a lot of meat on the bone. In any case, folks, I hope you're having a good day. I hope you continue to have good days. And as always, rise and rise again until lambs become lions. Bye-bye.